Little girl S. heartfelt call to her millionaire dad reveals an incredible truth that changed Eve. In the quaint little town of Maplewood, the sun set low, casting golden hues across the modest diner where 10-year-old Eve had spent countless hours. Her heart raced as she lifted a dirty plate, washing away the remnants of a bustling lunch rush. They might not have a lot, but Eve felt rich when she was with her mother, Lisa. The air was tinged with the scent of bacon and fresh coffee, a world that felt familiar and safe. Yet, as Eve wiped the last counter, she overheard her mother's voice, fragile and heavy with worry. What if we can't keep the diner open? What if we lose everything? The words echoed in Eve's little heart, twisting and turning like a knife. Deep down, Eve longed for more than the warm glow of the diner. She longed for a father. Her dad, a millionaire lost in the whirlwind of his own success, had left their lives years ago. What was he doing now? Did he even think of her? That night, as the stars twinkled above, something clicked in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, she could reach out to him. Eve found her old flip phone in the clutter of her room and with shaking fingers, dialed the number she had memorized long ago. When he picked up, the dismissive tone in his voice shattered her moment of hope.
"I don't have time for this," he said.
Her chest tightened as she felt the weight of that dismissal wrap around her like a thick fog. Why didn't he care? This wasn't just a call. This was a call for help. The following week, a crisis swept through Maplewood like a storm. The factory, a lifeblood for families, was threatening to close. Lisa worked double shifts, and the diner was filled with voices sharing fears, plans, and prayers. Eve could see her mother's strength, but she could also see the cracks forming. The community began to band together, but all Eve could think about was her father. Maybe if he knew the millionaire who had shuttered his heart could still be reached. With the courage only a child possessed, she wrote a letter filled with her dreams for the town and her wish to reconnect. "Please come home," it read, "help us save Maplewood." Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Days passed, and everything began to feel heavy. With her heart aching, Eve confronted her father in a letter, her words brimming with longing and the raw truth of family. The emotions bubbled inside her. But would he understand? What if he just turned away like he always had? The stakes felt impossibly high as hope and despair danced in her young heart. Eve was more than just a daughter reaching out. She was a spark for hope, challenging the very essence of what family meant. Would she finally show him that wealth was nothing compared to love? With the town's fate hanging in the balance, Eve braced herself for a confrontation filled with longing and the possibility of love, and the culmination of their lives teetered on the edge of a knife waiting for her father's response. Would he finally see what truly mattered? Eve clutched the letter in her tiny hands as she walked down to the mailbox, the sunset painting the sky in strokes of pink and orange. Each step felt heavier than the last, her heart hammering in her chest. She could feel the weight of her hopes and fears wrapped tightly in the paper. "Let it be enough," she whispered to herself as she dropped the letter into the mailbox. The metal clink echoed in the stillness, leaving her feeling oddly vulnerable, yet strangely empowered. It was her voice. It was her plea. With the crisp morning air on her face and the taste of determination on her tongue, she believed somehow that it would reach her father. Days turned into what felt like an eternity. The diner buzzed with the chatter of patrons, but Eve was lost in thought. She observed her mother work tirelessly, pouring coffee, flipping burgers, and always cracking jokes to keep the mood light. Lisa's laughter masked the worry lines forming on her forehead. But Eve could see through the facade. Her mom was exhausted, barely keeping afloat, and Eve felt that weight pressing harder every day. "Eve, honey, can you help me out back?" Lisa called one afternoon, interrupting the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her head. "I have a big order to fill."
"Coming, Mom,"
she replied, racing to the kitchen. There, while sorting through ingredients, Eve noticed a stack of bills tucked beneath the countertop. They were past due, more evidence of their struggle. The knot in her stomach tightened as she remembered her father's dismissive voice on the phone. She couldn't shake the nagging thought, what if he didn't care enough to read her letter? But hope glimmered in the corners of her heart. She poured everything into that letter, the dreams, the hurt, and a desperate wish for family, for connection. Eve could sense the change in the air just as the town began to rally around one another. Fundraisers popped up, and bake sales were held to help save the diner, but her mind often drifted to her father. What was he doing? Did he even know how much they needed him? Finally, one rainy afternoon, as she watched raindrops race down the diner windows, the heavy thump of the mail slot caught her attention. She jumped from her stool, racing to the front door. Her heart pounded wildly as she saw an envelope waiting. There was no mistaking the elegant handwriting. Eve snatched it up, her breath hitching in her throat. Could it be? With trembling fingers, she tore it open. Each word felt like a lifeline, tugging and pulling her emotions taut. "Dear Eve," it began. "I never knew the depth of your feelings until now." Tears of hope mixed with disbelief filled her eyes. Would he finally understand? Would he come home? As Eve read on, the words blurred with her rising emotions. "I need to see you. I want to understand who you are, who we are." She clutched the letter to her chest. But as she turned the page, her stomach plummeted. The rest was missing. Had he changed his mind? Was the letter cut short? Panic danced in her heart. What did he really want? The diner hummed around her, but all she could hear was the silence that followed her thoughts. Eve needed to know what came next. Would she finally get the connection she so desperately craved, or would this just be another painful moment in a string of disappointments? Taking a deep breath, she wrestled with her emotions. The letter was a lifeline, but it only deepened the mystery and the yearning inside her. The storm of uncertainty brewed as she wondered, what if this was just the beginning of something even bigger? She couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. But how? Eve leaned against the diner counter, clenching the letter like a fragile bird. Each beat of her heart seemed to echo the absence of its finishing words. She stood frozen, caught between hope and despair, feeling the air thicken with unspoken possibilities. Around her, the diner bustled, but she was in a world of her own, where the clatter of dishes faded to silence and the laughter of patrons grew distant. "Mom," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I got a letter from Dad, and it's not finished." The words spilled out in a rush, desperation clinging to each syllable. Lisa paused mid-pour, her smile fading, brows knitting into a frown. "What do you mean it's not finished?" A hint of worry crept into her voice, the weariness of her daily battles evident in the shadows under her eyes. Eve unfolded the letter once more, showing her mother the empty space at the bottom. "There's more he wanted to say. I can feel it. What if he was about to tell me he wants to come home?" Hope flickered in her eyes, but doubt threatened to snuff it out. Lisa's expression softened, and she reached for Eve's hand. "Honey, sometimes people can't find the words. Maybe he's scared, too." She squeezed her daughter's hand firmly. "But you have to remember, your father isn't the only one who has been missing. We've had to learn to stand on our own. And you're doing such a great job." Eve wanted to believe that. She really did. But there was a storm brewing within her, a bubbling confusion that gnawed at the corners of her heart. Her dad's absence had cast a long shadow over their small family, and now, as the possibility of reconnecting hung so tantalizingly close, the thought of losing it again was paralyzing. "Can I write to him again?" she asked, her voice a mere whisper. "I need to know what he really meant." "Of course, sweetheart," Lisa replied gently. "But just remember, no matter where he is or what happens, you have us. You have me. We'll face this together." As the day drew to a close, Eve returned to her room, the weight of the letter heavy in her pocket. She pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and began to write. With each word, Her fears transformed into sentences filled with hope. "Please, Dad, I need to understand," she wrote, pouring her heart onto the page. "I want to know you. I want to know if you still care." When she finally finished, the letter felt like a bridge stretching toward her father, a fragile link woven from her deepest longings. She sealed it with a shaky hand, but as she placed it next to the one he had sent, questions flooded her mind. Was he willing to embrace this? Was he truly ready to be part of her life again? Her heart raced as the sky outside her window turned dark. She felt both terrified and exhilarated. Lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling, and her thoughts spiraled. The whole world outside felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the next twist. Just as she started to drift off, her phone buzzed, jolting her awake. Without thinking, she grabbed it, her heart pounding. It was a message from an unknown number. "Eve, it's him." Her heart stopped. The world around her faded. What did he mean? What was he going to say next? She was on the brink of something far greater than she had ever imagined. With a shaky breath, Eve opened the message, her fingers trembling as she read the words that could unravel everything she thought she knew. The moment Eve read the words on the screen, her breath caught in her throat. "I've been waiting for you to reach out." It felt like a door creaking open into a dark room, hinting at what lay beyond without revealing the full view. Her fingers hovered over the screen as more messages poured in, each one drawing her deeper into the web of emotions she thought she had tightly controlled. "I'm sorry for everything." Each typed word felt like a confession, a heavy weight lifting silently into the air. "What does he mean?" she murmured under her breath. The light from the phone illuminated her face, highlighting the conflict swirling in her eyes: fear, hurt, and a flicker of hope. Her heart raced with every fresh notification, as if it was keeping time with the frantic rhythm of her thoughts.
"Can we talk?"
Another message. It was simple, almost innocent. How could he ask so easily after so many years of silence? Eve closed her eyes, wanting to shut out the world. Inside, she was a storm, waves crashing and swirling, longing to drown out the past while desperately wanting to understand it. She thought of all the birthdays, the school events, the times she would look into the empty chair that was meant for him. The ache in her heart had felt so permanent, and now, with just a few words, it threatened to shift. "Eve?" Lisa knocked lightly on her door, peeking inside. Her mother's silhouette stood framed in the doorway, a gentle light illuminating her concerned expression. "Are you okay?" Eve quickly wiped away the tears that threatened to spill over and forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But inside, she felt anything but. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Lisa stepped inside, concern knitting her brow tighter. She sank onto the edge of the bed, her presence warm and grounding. Would you want to meet him?" The question hung between them, heavy and charged. Eve could see the various emotions flicker across her mother's face: surprise, fear, and a hint of guilt. "I don't know, Eve." Lisa's voice trembled slightly. "It's complicated. But what do you want?" "I want him to explain why he left," Eve replied softly, each word ethereal and solid, an outline of her desires. "I need to know why." Lisa sighed, letting the weight of the moment settle. She looked away, as if pondering the past that had shaped their lives together. "You have to be ready for whatever he says, though," she warned gently. "Sometimes people are not what we want them to be." Eve nodded, an unbreakable determination settling in her chest. She felt both empowered and fragile, buoyed by the thought of answers, but fearful of the truth that might surface. Returning her gaze to her phone, she tapped out a quick reply: "I want to talk." Before she could second-guess herself, she hit send. The moment felt monumental, as if she was setting sail into uncharted waters. Eve's heart raced, a whirlwind of emotions dancing in her chest. Would he really show up? What would happen if he did? She imagined all the words she wanted to say, the questions that would tumble out like loose leaves in the wind. Suddenly, the ding of her phone broke the silence again, and she had to choke back excitement. "How about tomorrow?
"Can we meet?"
A deep breath filled her lungs as she replied, "Yes." The single word felt like a vow, a commitment to face whatever truths waited at the end of the journey. As she prepared for the meeting swirling in her mind, Eve couldn't help but wonder, was this the moment everything changes? What kind of man had her father become? And would she like him? Tomorrow loomed like a shadow, beckoning her forward into the light and the unknown. Eve woke up the next morning with the sun streaming through her window, the warmth feeling both comforting and suffocating at the same time. Her heart twisted in her chest as she turned to look at the clock. It was already late morning, and the meeting was drawing closer. She brushed a hand through her messy hair, feeling the weight of anticipation settle heavily on her shoulders. The room felt different today, charged with energy, almost electric. She could sense the unspoken possibilities swirling around her, but a nagging dread whispered in the back of her mind. What if this didn't lead to the closure she so desperately wanted? What if her father was still the man who had abandoned them, lost in his own world? Eve grabbed her phone, her fingers itching to reach out to him again. Instead, she found herself scrolling through old pictures. There he was, forever young in her memories, captured mid-laugh during summer trips. She barely remembered his voice or the way he used to hold her. Tears pricked her eyes, and she swiped back to the present, shaking off the wave of emotions. "Are you ready?" Lisa appeared at the door, her expression tentative but supportive. Eve took a deep breath, forcing a smile. "I think so." The truth was, she felt anything but ready. Each moment felt like the gathering storm before a downpour, exciting and frightening all at once. As they drove to the cafe, Lisa kept glancing at Eve, gauging her state. "Just remember, you have the power here," she said, her voice steady. "If he starts to hurt you, you can walk away." Eve nodded but couldn't bring herself to respond. Instead, she looked out the window, watching the world blur past. Each car, each person, felt irrelevant compared to what was about to unfold. The cafe came into view, bustling with people, their laughter and chatter mixing with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Eve stepped out into the vibrant atmosphere, her heart pounding louder than the cafe's background noise. Lisa squeezed her hand before letting go. "You've got this." Eve took a deep breath and walked inside, the door jingling softly as it closed behind her. She scanned the small room, her heart dropping when she saw him sitting in the corner. He had aged, hair streaked with gray and lines of experience etched across his face, but the essence of him was unmistakable. He looked up and their eyes locked. Time shifted in that moment. All the years of silence, the countless questions, and fractured love simmered beneath the surface. "Eve," he said, voice low and hesitant as he stood. "You look different. Grown up." "Yeah," she replied, forcing the words out. "It's been a long time." They both seemed to grasp the weight of those words, hanging like the space between them. Eve felt tears building but swallowed them down. This was not the time for weakness. She needed clarity. She didn't want to let the flood of emotions derail her.
"Can we talk?"
he asked, his expression sincere. "Yes," she replied, her voice firmer than she felt. "But you have to tell me everything." He paused, pulling out a chair. "I will.
Just give me a chance."
With that, Eve sat down, feeling both terrified and oddly empowered. She prepared to dive into a conversation that could alter the course of her heart forever. "Why did you leave?" she asked, the question tumbling out before she could stop it. The air thickened with unspoken pain, and she could see him grappling with his response. Would he give her the answers she craved, or would he retreat again, leaving her lost in confusion? Eve held her breath, anticipation bounding in her chest. She wouldn't back down now. She wanted to hear the truth, no matter how painful. As he opened his mouth to speak, Eve wondered, would his words heal her wounds or cut deeper? The cafe's chatter faded into a dull hum as Eve leaned forward, her heart racing. She was desperate for answers, but terrified of the pain that might follow. His lips parted, and a shaky breath escaped him, carrying the weight of years. "Eve," he began, but the words seemed trapped, struggling to surface. A flicker of panic crossed his face. It was a look she recognized from her childhood, one that mirrored her fear of rejection, of being abandoned yet again. Taking a chance, she pressed her palms on the table, grounding herself. Please, just tell me why you left us. I need to understand. Her voice trembled slightly, but a resolve ignited within her. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. This isn't easy for me, he admitted. When your mother and I separated, I was lost. I felt as if everything crumbled around me. I thought I was doing the right thing by stepping away. Stepping away? Eve interrupted, disbelief rising in her chest. You mean you thought leaving was best? You didn't even try to make it work. The frustration was palpable, fueling her anger. Do you know how that felt for us? For me? His gaze dropped to the table, ashamed. I know I failed you both, and I've lived with that regret every day, he confessed, his voice breaking. But I thought that being away would keep you safe from the chaos of my life. I had my own battles to fight. Eve's mind raced. He was making excuses, justifying behavior that could never be justified. You abandoned me, and now you want me to believe that it was for my own good? A wave of sadness crashed over her. Do you think that's enough? There was a long pause, thick with emotion. She could see her father grappling with the weight of his choices, and despite her anger, she felt a flicker of compassion. But it was buried deep under years of hurt. Eve, he said, finally lifting his gaze to meet hers, I owe you the truth, and it's not pretty. I made decisions that haunted me. There were things I never wanted you to see, to experience. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? She scoffed, her heart pounding fiercely. You think you can protect someone by cutting them off? By erasing them from your life? The rawness of her emotions was unrelenting. The expressions in the cafe shifted around them as patrons subtly clustered closer. There was an unmistakable energy in the air, a tension that drew eyes. Eve couldn't shake the feeling that they were now part of something larger, a scene played out before an audience that had turned into a courtroom. I wanted to come back, he said quietly, his eyes glistening. I did, Eve. But I kept telling myself it was too late. I thought you wouldn't want to see me. Too late? She echoed, feeling the fiery heat of anger subside just enough for a new realization to take hold. You left me and you think it was too late? Dad, I've been waiting for your call. Waiting for years. The emotional turmoil churned in the air, a stirring mix of bitterness and longing. She could almost taste it. The truth was all tangled up in their past, a puzzle that hadn't been solved yet. Can you at least try to understand where I was coming from? He leaned closer, desperate. You were my greatest joy, and my greatest fear. I didn't want to hurt you more. Could she? Could she see the man who left her? The man claiming to be sorry? A small part of her echoed back to her childhood memories. They were easy to find, but the pain also wrapped around those recollections tightly, making it hard to breathe. Eve felt tears prick her eyes again as she choked back the emotion. I don't want just your apologies. I want the truth. If I'm going to let you back and you don't have to decide now, he interrupted, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. Just can we try to start over? His words hung in the air, a fragile promise. But to Eve, a flicker of hope seemed almost daunting against the backdrop of all those years lost. Can we? She breathed, feeling the possibility of forgiveness dance on the edge of her heart. But could she really take that leap? As she searched his face for sincerity, Eve felt the weight of the moment shift again. Something was unresolved, a truth still unspoken. Could revealing it change everything they'd once known? And what was it that had driven her father away, really? Before we go any further, she said quietly, her heart pounding with determination, there's something I need to know. What truly happened back then? With that question hovering between them, the air crackled with uncertainty, leaving Eve to wonder. Was she prepared for the truth that could break her heart all over again? The air felt thick, almost charged with the weight of her question. Eve's heart hammered loudly in her chest, and she could see her father's expression flicker between emotions. This was at the moment when everything could change, a moment that could either free her or shackle her with deeper pain. Eve, he began, his voice shaky. I wish I could say it was a single moment that made me leave, but it was more about the accumulating burdens and shame. He hesitated, glancing around the cafe as if searching for the right words among the patrons who had unwittingly become witnesses to their confrontation. "I was drowning," he continued, the rawness in his voice pulling at her heartstrings. "I didn't know how to handle the divorce. I felt like I had failed your mother, and by extension, I thought I'd failed you. Every time I looked at your photos, I felt the weight of the man I had become, a man too broken to be your father." A small pang of sympathy cut through Eve's anger. For a moment, she couldn't fathom the pain he must have felt. The memories of a loving childhood clashed with the visage of a man who had chosen an escape route rather than a fight. "Why didn't you come back?" she pressed, desperation creeping into her voice. "You could have tried, Dad." "I'm not saying it would have been easy," but her voice faltered as she wrestled with her own emotions. "We needed you." "I know," he said, tears glimmering in his eyes. "I thought about you every day. But every time I considered reaching out, I felt unworthy of your love. I was scared that I would only bring more pain into your life." "You don't get to decide what I can handle," she shot back, the walls around her heart rising back up. "I've spent years trying to mend my heart, and I can promise you it wasn't because of your absence. It was because of the love from Mom, from friends, people who never left me. I realize that now," he said slowly, his voice steady though laden with emotion. "I realize there are so many things I didn't understand about love and family." Eve felt the crack in her heart widen, as if they were standing on the edge of an emotional cliff, ready to leap into the unknown. She wanted to believe him, to trust that they could rebuild something. But what if the foundation was so cracked that nothing could stand? "What was it you were really running from?" she asked, her voice low. "What made you feel that leaving was your only option?" He swallowed hard, the tension twisting in the space between them. "It wasn't just the divorce. It was my business failing. I had debts, things spiraled. I didn't want to burden you with my failures. I thought it was easier to disappear. How could I be the father you needed when I was an absolute mess?" Eve's heart ached for the little girl who felt abandoned, juxtaposed against the guilt he felt for not being a better man. But even in his confession, she felt the familiar sting of betrayal returning. "And that was it? You thought leaving was the answer?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "You thought disappearing could protect me? It's not that simple," he implored, desperation lining his voice. "I truly believed that. I thought I could make it work and come back when I was better, but I never was." In that moment, Eve caught a glimpse of a man lost in swirl of regret and pain, a man who had once been her whole world, now reduced to a fragile shell trying to gather the pieces back together. She was torn between the desire to forgive and the impulse to guard her heart. "What do we do now?" Eve asked quietly, feeling the weight of the years pressing down. "Can we ever move forward?" Silence hung heavy between them. And just as Eve felt ready to tip over the edge of vulnerability, the thrum of her phone buzzed in her pocket, a jarring reminder of the world outside. She hesitated, glancing at the screen. Someone was calling, someone who could disrupt everything she was finally facing. "Eve?" Her father's voice broke through her thoughts, drawing her gaze back to him. "I don't want to lose any more time, please. Don't let this moment slip away." As her finger hovered over the screen, the pull of the call felt like a lifeline and a noose all at once. Could she answer it without losing this moment? "What if," Eve said, her voice soft yet resolute, "instead of running away from our truths, we face them together? Could we take that leap together?" The cafe's chatter faded again as she faced a pivotal moment, wondering what that leap might look like. Would it lift them toward healing or plunge them deeper into despair? A choice loomed ahead, and with it came the pressing question: could love grow in the shadow of all their past, or was it just a flicker of hope? Eve's heart raced as she weighed her options, the phone buzzing insistently in her pocket. It felt like a weight on her chest, binding her to the moment, yet dragging her back to the chaos of her life. She could think of so many things to say, so many questions to ask as silence enveloped them. But here she was, at the crossroads, balancing on the edge of an unknown abyss, with her father's tear-filled eyes facing her. She stammered, voice trembling. "I need time to think." This is so much, she admitted, a stray tear slipping down her cheek. I understand, he whispered, his gaze softening, the deep lines on his face telling tales of suffering. But you're not alone anymore. If you're willing to give me a chance, I want to be here for you. I wanted before he could finish. The phone buzzed again, and Eve felt every nerve in her body tighten. Slowly, she pulled the phone out. The name on the screen made her gasp. Her best friend, Sarah, who had always been the first to offer comfort during her painful moments. I have to take this, Eve said, the words spilling out like spilled milk, messy and chaotic. You're leaving? Her father's voice, tinged with panic, broke through her moment of clarity. I don't know if I can handle this right now, she confessed, her voice wavering. She stood to step away, but her feet felt molten, rooted to the floor, as if something larger than her was holding her in place. Eve, please don't walk away, he pleaded. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. Just don't shut me out. Not when we're finally talking. But her heart was still a storm of emotions. The years of absence clashed against the hope kindling from their exchange. Could they really navigate this labyrinth of hurt together? Or was she only setting herself up for another disappointment? I need to hear Sarah out. Please. Her voice was a blend of resolve and fear as she took a step back, gripping the phone like a lifeline. Just think about everything I said. You deserve the truth, Eve. Just like you deserve me to be a better father, he blurted out, the urgency in his voice pulling at her. I will. I promise. She gave him a half-hearted smile, one that felt more like a mask. The reality of her situation was too overwhelming. With shaky hands, she swiped to answer. The sound of Sarah's animated voice poured through, enveloping Eve in familiarity, a balm for her raw emotions. Eve, I'm so glad I caught you. You won't believe what just happened. Sarah's excitement came through the phone, startling but comforting. I think we found the perfect opportunity for you. Eve leaned against the cafe wall, her heart still in turmoil. What do you mean? I can't go into it all just yet, but trust me, it's something that could change everything for you. There was a buzz of energy in Sarah's voice, a contagious excitement that tugged at Eve's curiosity. As the conversation continued, Eve's eyes flicked back to her father. He watched her with a mix of hope and dread, a soul laid bare before her. Hey, hang on a second, she interrupted, raising her hand, asking for his patience. Dad, she started, her stomach twisting in knots. What if everything can change, but not just because of us? Maybe we both need a little help from the outside. The truth, the healing, it's a journey, right? Right, he replied slowly, his face lighting up with understanding, though uncertainty lingered in his eyes. As she turned back to Sarah, excitement bubbled within her. Okay, tell me everything. In that moment, Eve realized that perhaps they could both take that leap, but it didn't have to be all on just the two of them. There were others who once held them up and could help them take the first steps together. But the shadow of uncertainty loomed. Would this chance offer the healing they needed, or would it uncover secrets that were better left buried? As she listened to Sarah talk about possibilities, particular words started to dance in her head. What could they unravel about their past? A familiar buzzing began in her pocket again, capturing Eve's attention. Was it just Sarah, or was it the haunting history they were both trying to escape? Eve, her father's voice pulled her back. What if you discover something that changes everything? Eve's heart raced at the thought. Everything felt like it was about to shift again, and suddenly, she didn't know if she could fully grasp what was around the corner. An incredible opportunity awaited, but what truths lay hidden within the shadows of their past? Eve inhaled sharply, feeling the weight of her father's words wash over her. A surge of determination, mixed with a thread of fear, coiled tightly within her chest. She looked at him, really looked at him. This was a man who had hurt her, yes, but also a man who was seeking redemption. Could they really both break free from the chains of their shared history? Okay, I'm listening, she said, her voice steadier now as Sarah's voice faded slightly in the background. She needed to ground herself, to find clarity in the emotional whirlwind surrounding her. Are you sure? Her father probed, sounding equal parts hopeful and scared. I know I've done wrong, but I want to make this right, Eve. We can take it one step at a time. Let us start, she agreed, her words carrying more weight than she intended. But I also want to hear what Sarah has to say. It might help. It might give us direction. She glanced back at her phone, where Sarah was still bubbling over with excitement.
What is it?
You there? Eve asked, trying to bridge the gap between her ongoing conversation and a potential new chapter with her father. Yeah. So I've been talking to my mom, and she mentioned a summer program that works with families' therapeutic retreats, you know?
It could be perfect for you.
Sarah enthused. Eve felt a flicker of curiosity. A retreat? Do you think that would help? Absolutely. Families come together, share experiences, heal old wounds. Your dad could join you too. It could be a big step for both of you, Sarah suggested. Eve's heart skipped a beat. The thought of stepping into a space dedicated to healing felt like a lifeline. But could she trust her father enough to take that leap? His distant gaze betrayed the hope she suspected he felt. Is that something you'd consider? Would you want to come? She turned to her father, her voice quieter now, revealing her vulnerability. The truth hung in the air between them, an unspoken bond tethered by their shared desire for repair. Let me think about it, he began, his brows furrowing. I don't want to push you into anything. I only want what's best for you, Eve. The honesty in his voice struck a chord, igniting an ember of hope deep within her. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, something neither of them imagined could happen. Could it be? She hesitated, allowing the words to simmer in her mind. Could it be a chance for us to start fresh? More than just fresh. We could build something, together, he said, the conviction layering his words, carrying a weight she had longed to hear. The buzzing in her pocket interrupted them again, vibrating like it had a pulse of its own. This time, Eve didn't hesitate.
Hold on, Sarah.
Let me check. She glanced at the screen, the name flashing across it sending chills down her spine. It was her mother. After years of silence, she didn't know if she was ready for this. What if it's bad? Eve whispered, looking back at her father. The past had a way of resurrecting itself, when least expected. Whatever it is, we face it together, he offered, his eyes steady on her, a promise hanging in the air. Taking a deep breath, Eve clicked on the call, her heart pounding with both dread and anticipation. As the line connected, a strange calm swept over her. This was the moment she had feared, yet it might also be the moment that changed everything.
Hello?
An unsure voice came through, shaking the ground beneath her. Eve's breath hitched. Mom? At that moment, she realized she was standing on the precipice of everything. A leap into the unknown awaited, but with it, a chance to rewrite their story. What would her mother say? Would it be the key to unraveling the secrets that held them all captive? The pulse of uncertainty surged around them. She would have to be ready for anything. Eve's heart raced as she held the phone to her ear, words hanging heavy in the air. This was at the moment every question, every pain, every hope could collide. Mom? The silence on the other end felt deafening until a soft voice finally broke through. Eve, sweetheart. I didn't expect you to pick up. Eve swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. I got your call. Are you okay? I'm fine. Just busy with work. You know how it is, Lisa replied, but Eve could hear the tremor in her mother's voice, the underlying anxiety. Mom, I'm here with Dad. The words slipped out before she could stop them, a truth that could shatter or rebuild moments of forgotten connection. She glanced at her father, whose expression was a mixture of regret and apprehension. As Lisa's startled silence lingered, Eve felt the weight of years standing resolute around them. Your father? Lisa's voice trembled, a hint of disbelief lacing through the distance. What do you mean?
Can we talk?
Eve asked, determination coursing through her. I need to know why you both chose to shut me out. It's time to face all of this. Her hands wrapped tightly around the table, feeling grounded yet yearning for the freedom of honesty. A quiet pause hung heavily before her mother spoke, vulnerability seeping through as she replied, All right. I'm on my way. With those words, the truth felt more tangible than ever. Eve exchanged glances with her father. Could this discussion finally heal their family? Minutes felt like hours as they waited in the cafe, the anticipation almost unbearable. Eve watched the world go by through the window, people with smiles and laughter, living lives unmarred by the shadows of unspoken truths. When Lisa finally arrived, Eve felt an electric charge fill the air. Her mother walked in, her face slightly worn but carrying the familiar warmth. Immediately, Eve's heart surged with a mix of love and fear. "Mom," Eve called softly, and the moment their eyes met, both were flooded with emotion. Lisa's gaze darted between Eve and her father, the weight of unspoken emotions hanging thickly around them.
Why now?
Lisa asked, her voice surfacing barely above a whisper as she braced herself.
Why after all this time?
I think. Eve paused, feeling the tremor in her voice. We need to face what we've been running from. We deserve to understand each other. Her father nodded, confirming the shared understanding that had grown over this conversation. Lisa looked at him cautiously. "This is still new for me," she replied, her tone softer, but still guarded. "You hurt us when you left. You didn't even say goodbye." "I know," he said quickly, emotion flooding his words. "Every day, I've regretted that choice. The silence, the shame it made me feel as though I couldn't return. I thought it was better that way." The sincerity in his voice hung between them like a lifeline. "I never wanted to burden your lives, but instead, I made everything worse." The sadness in his eyes reflected what Eve had felt all those years: loss, neglect, love buried under pain. Lisa's eyes glimmered with unshed tears. "I felt abandoned," she admitted. "You weren't just leaving me, you were leaving our little girl, our family. You destroyed a piece of us." Eve felt the weight lift just a bit. "Mom, we all suffered because of his choices, but maybe if we believe it's not too late, we can find a way to heal together?" It felt bold and precarious, but she had to speak it, to create change. "Can we? Please?" The silence stretched, fraught with the potential of reconciliation. As her parents exchanged glances, Eve held her breath. Lisa took a moment, then approached her father, a mix of hope and hesitation written all over her face. "Maybe we can work on this together," she suggested, and the flicker of skepticism gave way to curiosity. "It won't be easy. It'll take time, but for you, Eve, I'm willing to try." Her father nodded, tears pooling in his eyes. "I want to be the father you both deserve. I will do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." With the softness of the moment, Eve felt the doors to her heart crack open. Just a bit further. Each word was a small step toward healing, a promise painted in colors of hope rather than despair. Over cups of coffee and shared stories, Eve, Lisa, and her father slowly began to weave their lives back together. Memories tumbled forth, laughter punctuated moments of pain as they navigated through the years of absence. They wrote new pages in a book filled with both sorrow and the blossoming promise of tomorrow. As the sun dipped low, casting a gentle amber warmth through the cafe, Eve felt a sense of peace settle over her. The weight of uncertainty had shifted. The emotional shadows that once seemed insurmountable now felt a little lighter. "Thank you," Eve said softly, her heart full as the conversation flowed even richer. "For trying. For listening. Thank you for being so brave," her father replied, his smile cracking through years of remorse and regret. "Together, I know we can face whatever comes." With her family by her side, no longer lost, but on a journey toward healing, Eve finally felt the flickers of hope grow stronger. They stepped into the world, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever awaited. And as they did, she whispered a silent promise to herself. This was only the beginning. Now, it's your chance to seize the moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire and transform lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the creation of meaningful content. Your support makes all the difference. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and feel the power of family and hope. True fans know how important it is to support the channel through these actions.